down.
You sure about that?
Before we continue our story, let us briefly emphasize these important driving tips. For the trip down, the two most important facts to remember are these. First, use low gear the whole way down. This will allow the transmission and engine to act as a brake and help maintain a slow speed. Remember, low gear is usually indicated by a 1 or an L or L1 on your shifter. Second, don't ride your brakes. A pumping action of the foot pedal allows the brakes to run cooler than does just a steady pressure. And never use water to cool your brakes. If they begin to fade, stop at the next pullout and allow them to cool while you enjoy the view. If you're in the fog, please turn on your headlights and remember cars heading down should yield the right of way to the cars on their way up. You may have seen hikers while you're on the summit. Some are day hikers, climbing the mountains or traversing the presidential range by any of the miles of trails that crisscross the slopes. Many begin from the Appalachian Mountain Club's headquarters, just south of here in Pinkham Notch. Visible just above the AMC base camp is Tuckerman Ravine, famed for the challenging spring skiing. But skiing in this ravine is not for the faint of heart or casual skier. The head wall and gullies can be more extreme than anyone expects. Other merry wanderers may include the long haul hikers who are traversing the Appalachian Trail. This famous footpath stretches more than 2,100 miles from Georgia through to Maine and crosses the autoroad on its way. Even for these folks, reaching the top of New England is a milestone in their journey. The Native American populations of the area, the Abenaki tribe, among others, considered a Geokuchuk, as they referred to Mount Washington, a sacred place where the Great Spirit lived. So, rumor has it that they never climbed the mountain. This entire region was home to great numbers of Native Americans prior to the arrival of European ships and people. But times had begun to change as sparsely populated coastal communities of colonists continued to move.
Good.
One of these early settlers was named Darby Field.
Probably another one.
Seeing the shining summit from a ship off the coast of Maine, he set out in search of his fortune, enlisting 2 Native American guides to accompany him into the wilds of this unknown land. Darby set out in a birch bark canoe near Exeter, New Hampshire, paddled up the coastline into the Saco River and up to what is now Glen, New Hampshire. After obtaining permission from the local tribe elders, Darby Field and his 2 companions set out on what would become the first ever ascent of this formidable mountain. Whether it was riches, glory, adventure, or a combination of all 3 he sought, Darby and his guides achieved their quest and their place in history more than 350 years ago.
Especially when there's a guy coming towards you.
The mountain rolled over and went back to sleep for about another 150 years. It was the Crawford family, Abel and then Ethan after him, who finally began housing and then guiding guests around Mount Washington in the 1790s. As the story goes, it was believed that the first visitors who arrived at Crawford's End with their express purpose of climbing Mount Washington did so in 1818. Ethan's later journal entry reflects the typical Yankee flair for understatement of his massive effort. He only wrote,
"My father and I rode a footpath from the notch up through the woods, and it was advertised in the newspapers, and we soon began to have a few visitors."
And nearly 2 centuries later, they've never stopped coming. If for nothing else, the Crawford family's legacy is assured by the fact that they cut the first hiking trail up the mountain in 1819, which is still in use today and is the oldest hiking trail in America. Beyond that, the Crawfords cut the first bridle path, which incidentally later became the principal route of the Cog Railroad.
I didn't see any other equinoxes.
No.
We are the only equinox.
The world above tree line is your world now, and through your care, its rarity will be preserved for the next time you come, or for all those who come after. Now that
He's
you've
doing it.
seen the
He's
Alpine
doing it.
Zone, you can understand why we are
why
so
he's doing it.
dedicated to its conservation. To your left, you'll see the Great Gulf Wilderness. This is a glacial cirque of more than
There's a truck right there. He's watching.
5,500.
We're gonna be crazy.
Area from any form of man's intrusions. There's no timber harvesting, mining, or buildings of any kind are allowed.
Nice.
With the exception of a few hiking trails, only the forces of nature are at work in the Great Gulf Wilderness. Though it is unmarked today, the halfway point used to be a stopover for guests and horses in the
That's where
old
you
days.
wanted to go.
The halfway house offered shelter and refreshments before the last long pull to the top. And take a minute to think again of the horse teams straining against their harnesses as the drivers spoke commands and encouragement. Horses ruled this road for the first 50 years of its life. In fact, it
Probably
wasn't
take my
until
sweater off, though, huh?
1912 gas-powered vehicles took over the job of carrying guests up the road. From that time on, the horse-drawn era began to fade from memory, and the carriage road eventually became the auto road. The first motor vehicle used to carry passengers, a Thomas Flyer, began the change in 1912, followed in 1917 by a fleet of Pierce Arrows, then Ford Woodies in the 1930s, Internationals in the 1950s and 60s, and finally the vans that you see cruising on the road today. In many ways, the evolution of transportation played itself out right on the path that you now travel. With an average grade of 12%, the auto road presents a manageable challenge for each new generation of transportation technology. In 1904, one of the first motorsports events
One
in
fell,
America
one got
took
squished,
place
and one flew
right
out.
here, when the Climb to the Clouds race was held on the very road you're now driving.
That's what I'd love to try.
Mount Washington was a test track of sorts, because if a car could prove itself on these unforgiving slopes, it could work anywhere. Many traditional thinkers were not ready
pull you
to
over?
acknowledge the worth of these mechanical
Things are going too
contraptions.
slow.
It was a statewide newspaper. The Manchester Union leader
There you go.
wrote,
The whole thing is an unmitigated nuisance. The lives and property of perfectly helpless people
That
have been
taxi.
menaced for no reason and to provide amusement for total strangers. Some drivers can be trusted. Most
Do you have it in
cannot.
first?
If these people think of cutting up another year, let them stay in jail a couple of days, and everyone will be the better for it.
as you drive along in your vehicle today, try to imagine these two scenes in your mind. First, see the early cars with their 15 horsepower engines straining to make the grade.
A little bit of
And
a
then
curve
the
right here.
other extreme, the
Small curve.
high-powered race cars of today that climb to speeds of more than
don't wanna
100
accidentally go that way.
miles an hour on the
No,
same
that
track
means you got
that
death.
you are
Yeah.
negotiating right now. Throughout history, the most daring of racers have always tried to capture the speed record on Mount
Where do you come
Washington,
from?
where horse-drawn wagons took
Are there
3
two
to
roads?
4 hours to make the ascent. Early autos
So
did it in
confused.
just under 2 hours. The most recent racers have shaved the time to well under 7 minutes, though they don't take in much of the scenery.
There's no need to come up here in 7 minutes.
That would be phenomenal.
If it has been a clear
No
and sunny
way.
day for you
It's not-
here
it's
today,
not-
consider
not safe.
yourself lucky. The weather on Mount Washington is generally more interesting than that, though. It's not that the weather can change quickly here, it's that the mountain seems to generate its own climate and environment. Sure, it basically tracks with the 4 seasons the rest of us know. It just overlaps them more and then mixes them together. So rain, snow, and sun make the rounds based more on random chance than on
A couple of small
counting
trees.
sense. Some days there's
Must be getting
rain in the
lower and
valleys,
lower and lower.
beautiful sun on the
Lower.
mountain, or vice versa. Some days
Lower.
clouds fly by close enough to touch them. Other times an undercast develops where a blanket of clouds shroud the lowland and the summits of the taller mountains in the presidential range
Times 2.
prove like islands in a sea of white. Hundreds of inches of snow each year, hurricane force winds on more than a few
Thought that was an
occasions,
equinox.
fog thick enough to chew. This and more
Is
makes
it hello?
up what we call
Hellos don't know how
Mount
to drive.
Washington weather. It is both the diversity and extremes in the weather on this mountain that have made it a center of
Nice
meteorological studies
Mustang. I like
since
that
the
blue.
mid-1800s.
Let's get one.
The Hitchcock-Huntington expedition was the first to winter over on the summit in 1870. It was a remote, harsh winter wilderness which exposed these scientists to conditions they couldn't have imagined. The U.S. Signal Corps took over from 1870 until 1892 and experienced many of the same conditions
Off-roading
that
again.
members of the Mount Washington Observatory staff contended. This journal entry from the logbook details
Are your lights
a
on?
difficult
I have no
evening
idea,
for the
dude.
early observers.
January 27, 1875. Coldest of the season, 46 below. The wind is blowing a hurricane and has done so all through the night past. Hard work today to keep warm. The wind and cold penetrate every cranny. Enormous drifts of snow have formed about the building, and as fast as the passage is cut out and the windows cleared, the wind drives in snow to fill out the gaps. Coal is far from being good. It's full of rocks and clinkers. Respectfully suggest that good coal and another heating stove be purchased. If such
Here's a
weather
puppy.
as this is to continue, it would be wicked to keep men in such a dwelling. Sergeant Isaac Burr.
It can be assumed that good coal and another stove were purchased because winter occupation ceased in 1890. It took 40 years to round up another crew of dedicated weather watchers. In 1932, Alex McKenzie, Joe Dodge, Bob Monahan, and Sal Pagliuca staked a new claim on the summit, and the Mount Washington Observatory began round-the-clock weather observations that still continue to this very
Hobbits.
day.
Huh?
Then came
Oh,
the
hello.
day that no one expected. A day that has
Oh,
gone
Mohammed's over
down
there.
in history and has yet to be topped. It was April 12th, 1934, that the world's highest recorded winds, 231 miles an hour, blew over the summit of Mount Washington. Pagliuca's logbook entry for that day tells the story.
We've been taking turns knocking ice from the anemometer post. Shortly after 1 a.m., I set out to clear the ice again and disappeared into the fog on the roof. I felt the full blast of the 200-mile-per-hour southeast wind on my face. Kneeling on the platform, I pounded the foot-thick ice accumulation with all my strength, but alas, wasn't making much impression on the rough frost.
On that day, Mount Washington earned another place in history and was forever nicknamed the home of the world's worst weather. Because of this, various companies and scientific institutions have tested everything from jet engines to paint and winter clothing. It is because of the reliably harsh extremes of Mount Washington weather that so many different types of tests have been and continue to be done here. In a typical year, the temperature averages 27 degrees. The winds,
That's
although
messed up.
averaging 35 miles an hour,
The average
exceed
temperature for the year is
hurricane
27
force
degrees.
on
And then it
more
gets
than
really cold in the
100
winter.
days
That's
out of the
weird.
year.
Right.
The summit is in the clouds more than 60% of the time. The snowfall averages 245 inches per year, though more than 500 inches, that's more than 47 feet, fell in the winters of 1968 and 69. Below Tree Line, the Great Glen Trails
More bikers
Outdoor
now.
Center uses the road as part of their cross-country trail system. This winter, you can
Almost off
take
of
our
it.
specially designed snow coach on the road
It's fine.
just above Tree Line for a breathtaking look at the presidential range in winter, and we'll do all the driving. It's a time of unimaginable beauty and deep snow. In fact, on part of the road known as the Crabwood, 20 or more feet of snow accumulate each morning. Before the days of heavy equipment, manpower opened up drifted parts of the road. As the tourist season approached, the road crew armed with only shovels would begin to move mountains of snow that have accumulated in certain areas. Now imagine facing a wall of
I
snow
have to pee.
20 feet deep and 300 feet long, knowing it was your job to break through. This is what the early road crews faced year after year. Today, the job hasn't changed, just the methods of accomplishing it have. Bulldozers and backhoes have taken over where men and shovels once fought the elements. But it's still a lot of work every spring to put a mountain road back in order after a harsh North Country winter. Mount Washington and the Auto Road is as much a destination today as it ever was. There seems to be an almost mystical allure that draws people to its towering heights. For some, it's an opportunity to reach the top of a major mountain and then quietly contemplate the beauty and majesty of their surroundings. For others, it's a place to make history, to set a record or to break a record. This has been the case since Darby Field set out to climb in 1642. Each generation brings a steady stream of challenges. The areas of endeavor are as diverse and unique as the individuals who undertake them. Listen to this sampling of just a few of the records and record breakers through time. 1857. A man counts his steps walking to the top. 16,925. 1861. The road opens and Colonel Joseph Thompson drives the first horse-drawn vehicle up Mount Washington. 1875. Harlan Aumann runs down the road in 54 minutes.
Wow.
1887. An all-time record for horse-drawn vehicles is set by Charles O'Hara with a time of 1 hour, 9 minutes. 1899. Freeland O. Stanley drives the first automobile up the road in 2 hours and 10 minutes. 1904. Harry Harkness sets a record in the first Climb to the Clouds auto race of 24 minutes, 37.6 seconds. 1907. The first recorded round trip is made on skis. 1923. The automobile hill climb record stands at 17 minutes. 1924. A Harley-Davidson motorcycle ascends in 15 minutes. 1926. Arthur Walden drives the first dog team to the summit. 1932. Florence Clark becomes the first and only woman to drive a dog team solo to the summit. 1934. The still current world record wind of 231 miles an hour is recorded on the summit. 1938. An automobile record of 12 minutes 17 seconds is set by Lem Ladd in a Ford V8 Special. 1950s. Alden Weigel of Walpole runs up the road, rides down the cog, and hikes up Tuckerman Ravine all in 14 hours. Weigel then goes on to climb the road barefoot and blindfolded, then backwards, then pushing a wheelbarrow keg with you are yours forever. This, above all, is the glory of Mount Washington, that it gives absolutely anyone at any age a chance to sit with friends and family, get some perspective on the world we live in from a place unlike any other, to breathe deeply the mountain air and reflect briefly on those who came before and will come after, perhaps members of your own family. Enjoy the rest of your day and your visit to the White Mountains. Visit us again sometime for another drive in your own vehicle, or take a guided tour in one of our stages. When you reach the bottom, come across the street. Take advantage of services at the Glen House base area. The Glenview Cafe has a spectacular view of the mountain you've just climbed and serves homemade soups, sandwiches, and other goodies. The Red Barn Museum features horse-drawn and automotive stages on display, as well as historical memorabilia and a slideshow and video, all for free. To continue your day of enjoyment and adventure, you can take in these magnificent surroundings in a whole different way with a visit to the Great Glen Trails Outdoor Center right across the street. Enjoy biking for the whole family on wide, gentle sloping trails, an indoor climbing wall, easy walks on rolling paths, a picnic in a field of wildflowers, or just plain relaxing with unbelievable views. The Great Glen Trails Outdoor Center has this and more. A full schedule of summer and winter programs is always planned at Great Glen. For example, spend the afternoon on a guided kayak or canoe trip on the Androscoggin River. Or even more adventure, take a full day to explore the natural wonders of the Lake Onega Wildlife Refuge while paddling with one of our guides. Also, stop in our outfitter shop and be prepared for your own outdoor fun. Besides bike rentals, you'll find a wide selection of items from sunglasses and postcards to high-tech outerwear, biking and paddling accessories. And the best part is you're already here. Simply come across the street to the base lodge and you'll find the Great Glen Trails Outdoor
Sounds good
Center.
going up.
Remember, in the wintertime, those same great trails make for the best cross-country skiing and snowshoeing in the North Country. Continue your experience in the great outdoors right here. Come on over for a look and more information. Well, that's about it. And if you're not at the base area, you will be soon. We hope you've enjoyed your adventure above treeline, and thank you again for journeying with us today on our road to the sky.
It's tight right here.
A lot of them, I'd say.
Washington Auto Road welcomes you to the heart of the White Mountains and your adventure on the Northeast's highest peak. You are about to embark on a journey that will do more than just take you to the highest summit in the Northeast. You are going to the birthplace of legends, following up a path that leads through time and winds its way through woods, wind, and weather. At the state park on top, you'll see the home of the Mount Washington Observatory and the historic Summit Stage Office, which is where the world's highest winds were recorded in 1934. More about that later. This audio tour will be your information and entertainment guide as you travel on the oldest man-made attraction in the United States. Your driving time to the top will be approximately 25 minutes, and this tour will help you understand a lot more about the remarkable views and amazing things that have happened here since the road opened to the public
See that
in
guy's face?
1861.
No.
Now,
If he
before
thinks
we
this
get
is
into
bad,
all the storytelling on how
Yeah.
this remarkable
This
road
area
came
is
to be
nothing.
and
This
some
is
of the
nice and
funny
wide.
things
Yeah.
folks have done on it,
He did. When we
have
got
some
closer, we
pretty
started going,
important information.
you
to
know that
pass
face you
along.
make every once in a while.
Among other wonders, you will be entering the fragile alpine zone, home to many rare and unique forms of plants and flowers. There will be many opportunities to stop your car and walk around, so please take care to leave these special environments as you found them. It is only because others have been thoughtful in past generations that these small, endangered treasures are still here for us to enjoy. So if you watch your step, future generations might have the same opportunity. It is only through our continued stewardship that we can protect and preserve the resources that we all treasure. Now just imagine that this road opened to the public in 1861, and the scenes which are about to unfold before you have remained unchanged since then. Also unchanged is the need for safe driving. Now the road's remarkable safety record over the past century and a half
He's got
is
his camera
because
right on his
drivers, whether in
hood. You see that?
horse-drawn
Yeah.
vehicles of the old
That's kinda
days or the motor vehicles of this century, respect the basic rules of safety, which apply to the trip up and down Mount Washington. As you ascend the mountain and then descend after your visit to the summit, these driving tips will help maximize safety and minimize
Alright,
inconvenience.
that's a stupid place to
Please
stop.
keep the following
be
in mind
something along
as your
right there.
journey continues. The auto road has two-way traffic coming and
Keep the
going
camera
at
on.
all times.
see that.
Nope. A little added bonus for the $28. Honestly, I've never seen anything alive up here. I just, for some reason, thought that this was like a dormant part of the mountains. Because it's such a tourist thing now. Very cool. To the ground.
What's that?
Sunglasses.
Optional return.
No. That's how you end it?